Hi guys! Just doing a bit of preparation work for social distancing, what with the global pandemic. Nothing too over the top, 2 machine guns ought to do. Flipping it.
It's difficult to breathe in that thing, but then again, that's kind of the point, isn't it, I suppose? Only joking. What we've got is a review of another Flowsim product, but see if you can guess what it is. I'm going to give you a musical clue. You ready? Invisible airwaves crackle with life. Bright antenna bristle with the energy. Emotional feedback on a timeless wavelength, bearing a gift beyond price, almost free. You get it? Well, if you know your music, you'll know that that is The Spirit of Radio by Canadian rockers Rush, from their Permanent Waves album. Good album if you're into music. But being called The Spirit of Radio, that was your clue. Because what we are reviewing today is RealVolmet, which is a radio add-on for FSX and P3D, and it's pretty cool, and it will certainly add a lot of spirit to your radio. See, I don't just make this up on the fly. Anyway, let's check it out, and don't worry about this, I'm not really doing that. And this knife is plastic. So, RealVolmet. What's all that about, and more importantly, what's it going to do for your sim? Now, to understand that and to fully understand what this product does, it will help if we understand what Volmet actually is. Now, for those of you of a linguistic bent, if you parlez français, you will know that vol is the French word which means flight. And if you're of a really linguistic bent and you anmelate arche elinka, which is you speak Greek, and more specifically ancient Greek, then you would know that meteo, very often abbreviated to met, is the ancient Greek word for a meteorite. Now, the ancient Greeks didn't truly understand what meteors were, other than that they were a phenomena which appeared high in the sky. They had a pretty good idea of what they were, but they were referring to a phenomena which appeared high in the sky. And so the study of meteors up high in the sky was meteorology. And of course, over the years, the term meteorology has come to mean the study of phenomena high in the sky, i.e. weather. So the word meteo nowadays refers to weather and is very often, as I say, abbreviated to Met. For example, in the UK we have the Met Office. So the word Volmet is a portmanteau, i.e. a combination of 2 words, which means flight weather. So that's what Volmet actually means. Now, what actually is Volmet? Well, Volmet is a worldwide network of radio transmitters which transmit weather data, and that can be picked up by anyone who tunes it in, but it's specifically aimed at people flying aeroplanes so that they can get information about weather in areas distant from them so that they can plan their flight accordingly. Now, you probably, if you're not that familiar with Volmet, you probably think that sounds very, very similar to ATIS, which is the Air Traffic Information Service, which you can receive if you are at an airport and you tune into that airport's ATIS frequency. It will give you some information now, and it is very similar. An ATIS transmission covers a few things. First thing an ATIS transmission does is it gives you the airport identifier. So if I'm at Manchester and I tune in Manchester's ATIS, it will say Manchester EGCC air traffic information. Then what it will do is it will give me an identifier which tells me how recent the information is. So it'll give me a phonetic letter, and every hour the ATIS information is updated. So at the start of the day, it's given the letter Alpha, and then an hour later, it's given the letter Bravo, and then Charlie an hour after that, and Delta, and so on and so forth, and it goes through the day. And the reason for that is so that when you are calling for your IFR clearance, they can check that you have tuned in to a recent version of the Air Traffic Information Service, because on your IFR clearance request you say blah 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 such and such an aircraft with information Alpha or information Charlie or information Echo. So that's what that's about. ATIS broadcasts update every hour. Now ATIS broadcasts usually include the airport, the time, the winds, the gusts for the winds, the visibility, the weather, the clouds, the temperature, the dew point, the QNH setting for your altimeter, and any supplementary information that they deem necessary. For example, if there's a hurricane on the way, or there's a terrible thunderstorm coming, or whatever. And then they will give you the trend, i.e., is it likely to change, or is there no significant change, which will say as no sig. And Volmet transmissions give pretty much the same information, and they have pretty much the same format as well. However, Volmet transmissions are updated every 30 minutes, so usually on the hour and the half hour. However, there is some variance in stations around the world. Some of them are 2 or 3 minutes after the hour and 2 or 3 minutes after the half hour, but generally speaking they're roughly on the hour and the half hour, whereas ATIS is every hour on the hour when they change. Now, another significant difference between a Volmet transmission and an ATIS transmission is an ATIS transmission is specific to an airport, so it doesn't generally have a very long range to the radio transmission, because normally you are tuning it in when you're on the ground, putting your flight plan in and getting ready to call for AFR clearance, or you are on the way to that airport and getting fairly close and you're within range of the ATIS transmission and you can tune it in. It's more helpful for departures than it is for arrivals, because it would be helpful with an arrival if you could tune in to a radio station and get that information very much prior to when you were getting near the airport. And that's really what Volmet's about, because Volmet transmissions are not specific to one airport. They tend to cover 5 or 10 airports within a specific region. So there is a London Volmet, and that covers airports around the London area, but it stretches far and wide. So it covers some airports that are well north of London, for example Manchester, which is nearly 200 miles north of London, and well to the south as well. For example, the London Volmet also covers Amsterdam Schiphol, and it also covers Paris Charles de Gaulle, which is quite some way away. Now this means that I could take off from Glasgow, be halfway to Charles de Gaulle, which is my ultimate destination, but I could already be tuning in the London Volmet and getting information concerning what the weather was doing at Charles de Gaulle, so I could have a good idea of what runway was going to be in use and what kind of approach ATC would be giving me. For example, if it's socked in like crazy, I know it's probably going to be an ILS approach, so they're going to be bringing me in on an ILS capable runway. And if I know the winds and the gusts and what have you, I'll also know which is the most likely runway that I'm going to use, so I can probably get a good idea at what standard terminal arrival routing would be good to get me lined up for that runway and what have you. And if I also know the gusts there, I can probably work out a good flap setting. So this is great if you like simulating airliner flights, because one of the problems with airliner flights is that you can program your FMC and you can take off and do your flight and what have you, but normally with Flight Simulator you can't really get a good idea of what approach you're going to use until you are getting fairly near the airport where you can tune in ATIS, or you start dealing with the air traffic controllers specific to that airport. But with Volmet you can get that information very much sooner, so it's not always going to tell you exactly what approach you're going to use, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea, and you can at least get to programming your FMC with a good idea of how things are going to go. And until recently, you couldn't really do that. in Flight Simulator because there was no Volmet system. So that is why this I believe is such a cool program, because it adds a lot of capability to your Flight Simulator. You don't necessarily have to be into airliners and doing all that kind of thing to gain some benefit from it. Even if you're doing VFR flights, it can give you a good idea of what the weather is quite a long way off. So it's really cool. There is, however, a caveat to this, and I'm sure you know this if you know a bit about Flight Simulator, and that is that FSX and P3D don't necessarily simulate every kind of radio that you can have in an aeroplane. They just don't do it. There are some limitations on the radios that that FSX and P3D simulate, and within that there are also some limitations that some add-on aeroplanes and some default aeroplanes have in terms of tuning the radios, in that they won't necessarily tune the exact decimal frequencies that the real frequencies in the real world actually are. And to get around that, what the developers of RealVolmet have done is, for example, if you are trying to tune 135 decimal 375 and you find that your radio in your Flight Simulator plane won't let you tune decimal 375, then what you can do is you can tune the closest you can possibly get to that frequency, and it will still pick up the Volmet station. So it's pretty good that they've put a work in around that. Now, one of the other caveats is that this product is called a RealVolmet Europe P3D. So I've already mentioned that that it's not necessarily going to work with FSX, but it definitely works with P3D. But note the Europe bit in the name. And the reason for that is that around the various parts of the world, some of the Volmet stations use frequencies that are not well simulated in FSX and P3D. However, in Europe, it's quite common for the Volmet stations to transmit on a few frequencies, including the frequency range that your standard ATC communications radio in Flight Simulator, which absolutely is simulated, can pick up. So you get a lot of Volmet frequencies around Europe that'll be 125 megahertz or 130 megahertz or whatever, and that's well within the capability of your what your aircraft in FSX and P3D can simulate. Now, whether that means that there is going to be a workaround that will make the developer able to sort of do some jiggery-pokery and get RealVolmet to have a version which works in the United States or works in India or what have you, is debatable. You know, I guess you could do some clever trickery with it, but I don't know that. But what I do know is that this product covers Europe, so it's RealVolmet Europe P3D V4. Now, how much of Europe does it actually cover? Well, I looked on the map of coverage that's in the PDF that you get with the product, and it covers from Lisbon in Portugal on the far western side of Europe, and then if you go quite far east in Europe to Nicosia, it covers there. And then if you go north in Europe up to Sundsvall, it covers up to there, and if you go south down to the Mediterranean, it covers Malta. So you're going to get coverage for North Africa out to sort of the main sort of airports in Russia, in the European parts, so Moscow and stuff like that, Scandinavia, up to sort of Scotland and what have you, as far as the sort of western seaboard of Europe, and so it's covering most of Europe and a little bit beyond. So pretty good coverage, and it does that by having 55 Volmet stations simulated, and each one of those 55 covers roughly 10 main airports within its area. So it's a lot of airports that it is covering, probably 500 or more, something like that. Now the PDF itself that comes with the product is 10 pages, so it doesn't take a lot of reading. Basically what it does is it covers installing the product, and then it gives you a little bit of information about how it works, and then it has a couple of charts that give you all of the frequencies for the Volmet stations, and a map which also gives you the frequencies for the Volmet stations, and then it gives you a little bit of information concerning what it is compatible with, because RealVolmet will work with a bog standard installation of P3D, but what it will also work with is it'll work with Active Sky, and that's really where it's at its best. However, it is worth bearing in mind that there are a few ways that it can work with Active Sky. It can work with sort of like historical weather, or if, like me and probably most people, if you use the live weather function of Active Sky, then what RealVolmet will be doing is it will be calling down Volmet information from the internet, and what it will then be doing is it will be translating it into a format that your flight simulator can read, and then what it will do is it will give you an audio read of it on your radios using a simulated voice, which is exactly how Volmet works in reality. It uses a simulated voice. So this isn't simulating Volmet, it's actually getting the genuine Volmet information and putting it into your simulator. So it sounds very much like the real thing, and in terms of the information, it is the real thing. So it's very, very cool if you like flying in real world scenarios with real weather, but you can also use it with historical settings if you faff about with it a little bit, and if you haven't got Active Sky, you can use it in a bog standard installation if you want to. So it's very, very capable in these respects, and it's pretty cool. So how much is the product, and how large is it, and how easy is it to install? Well, I bought RealVolmet Europe P3D V4 from Sim Market, and it's currently on sale at Sim Market, and will be for, I think, maybe a week or so longer than after this video is published. So normally it's priced at €17.99, which is pretty cheap. But currently it is €13.49, so it's a little bit more than a tenner, just a little bit more than a tenner, and you know, under normal circumstances it'd be a little bit more than 15 quid, so it's not an expensive add-on, but it's very, very capable for all that. Now, with it being what it is, it's not a massive download. It's 19 megabytes in size, and most of that is taken up with the sound files that RealVolmet uses to simulate what the actual Volmet does in reading out voices for the weather, and the rest of it is the actual sort of jiggery pokery that's making it work in your flight sim, and the other bit is the PDF, which is 10 pages. So not a massive download, but certainly very large in terms of capability. So it's about time we had a look at how it works. So you can probably see behind me that that I have P3D running, and if you know your stuff from P3D, or you know your airplanes, you might recognise that is the Carinado Beechcraft 18, which is a very nice add-on, and funnily enough it's actually on sale as well at the moment, so if you're looking for a nice old sort of vintage airplane, that's quite a nice one. But I have specifically chosen to use this aircraft to point out a couple of things related to it. Now, just before we do that, just before we take a look at it, I am going to point out something about RealVolmet Europe. Now, I bought it, as I say, from Sim Market, 19 megabyte download, and what you need is you need to be online to activate it. So you download it from Sim Market, or you know, if you buy it back from somewhere else, you get it on your hard disk, you double click on the exe file, off it goes installing it. Then what it does is it asks you for your serial number, which you're given when you purchase the thing. So you highlight your serial number, copy it, and then when the little box pops up, you paste that in there and you hit OK, and then what it does is it connects online, and it then comes up with another dialog box that asks you for an activation code. Now that activation code is sent to you via email or messaging or what have you. Now what you have to do is you have to copy that activation code and paste that into the little activation window, and in the field above you have to put your ID. Mine's Al, obviously. Now be very, very careful when you do that, because I had problems with it, and it wasn't very obvious what the problems were because I thought I was being very careful. What I was doing when I was highlighting the activation code is there was a really tiny character. It wasn't a space, it was kind of like a little invisible line that was right in front of the activation code. So when I was highlighting it, I was accidentally copying a character that was not part of the activation code, and I kept putting it in and trying it and what have you, and it wasn't working. And I actually contacted the developer, who was really good with support, I have to say. So thanks to the developer, who said, yeah, just be real careful about it because you can get this character at the front. So I zoomed the web page and highlighted it really, really carefully, and sure enough it worked. So there's a little gotcha. And I am by no means not used to copying things on computers and stuff like that, and it managed to fool me. Yeah, it's one to watch out for. Anyway, the other reason that I picked this plane to use rather than, I know, the Flight Sim Labs A320 or I know a DC-9 or a 737 iFly or whatever, I picked this is because there is a little gotcha that this can do with the radios. It's nothing not actually a fault of the program itself. The program works fine, but there is a little bit of a gotcha. In fact, there's more than one. So I've picked this plane specifically to allow you to see that. So without further ado, let's take a look at RealVolmet Europe P3D V4 actually in the simulator.
Okay, so here we are in P3D, and we are currently looking at the Carinado Beechcraft Model 18, which they market as, I think they market it as the D18. And as noted, this is currently on sale. So if you want a nice old sort of vintage aeroplane, then this one's worth having. Now, we are currently at a little bit over 14,000 feet, and we are just crossing the Mersey estuary, and passing under the nose you can see is Liverpool John Lennon Airport. So you'll note that we are a long way from Amsterdam, we're a long way from Brussels, and we are a long way from Paris. We're even a fairly long way from London, because London is roughly about 200 miles away from us to the south at the moment. Now, I'm going to switch to the cockpit view, and I'm going to zoom in on the panel to point out. So you can see here we are at 14,300 feet. Now, the reason that we are at 14,300 feet is because if you want to receive Volmet radio stations, you have to be fairly high up, because you are trying to pick up radio stations that are a long way away. So if you do buy and install RealVolmet Europe, don't try using it when you're at low altitude, because you're not going to hear anything. Now, the reason that I chose to get into the Carinado Beechcraft Model 18 is because it has two radios on the panel. It has this Bendix King radio, and it has this Garmin GPS with radios that can be tuned on it. Now, this is a bit of a gotcha for things like RealVolmet, especially in airliners where you've got two comm radios on the pedestal. What I've found in airliners is it helps to tune both comm radios on both sides of the panel in order to get RealVolmet to work. But on something like this, where you've got a Bendix King radio on the panel, and you've got kind of like an aftermarket Garmin, it's worth finding out which one is actually going to be the one that picks up the frequencies. In the case of this Carinado Beechcraft Model 18, it is the Garmin. So I'm turning the Bendix King radio off, and we're on the Garmin. Now, I'm currently tuned to 128.600. Now, I can tell you that 128.600 is the London South Volmet, and you will no doubt be able to tell that I cannot hear anything on the radio, and I should be able to. And that is not a fault of RealVolmet, it's a fault of P3D and indeed FSX, in that if you pause the sim or you turn the sound off with the Q key, sometimes what that can do is some radio stations won't then play back. It's a bit of a glitch with the ATC, and it's particularly a glitch if you've got add-on audio programs as well as the built-in ATC. Fortunately, there is a very easy way around it. You bring up your ATC window, which you can either do by going up to the menus and go and get it in there, or you can use the keyboard shortcut, which is the @ symbol on your keyboard, just a little bit to the left of your enter key, so I'm going to do that. So we get the ATC menu up there. Because we've just passed Liverpool John Lennon Airport, you can see that I am able to tune Liverpool Tower and Liverpool ATIS. So I'm going to do that. Liverpool ATIS, boom, and I tune that. Sure enough, I get Liverpool ATIS. You can now hear that. What I am going to do though is I'm going to tune Liverpool Tower, because I don't want it stomping all over my narration for this video. But what I should now be able to do is I should now be able to tune in one of the Volmet channels, and it should hear it. So I'm going to go for 126.600 on the standby frequency, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip that up.
London, North, Volmet at time 2330, Durham Tees Valley 2329er, wind 350 degrees 06 knots, visibility 4,500 meters, haze, no significant cloud, temperature 4 degrees, dew point 3 degrees, QNH 1027 hectopascals, East Midlands 22.
So I'm going to flip that off back onto the tower frequency for Liverpool John Lennon, and what we had there was we had London North. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune in London South, which is 128.600. So I only need to knock that up 2 megahertz, and then I'm going to flip that back, and we will get London South on the Volmet.
London, South, Volmet at time 2330, Birmingham 2250, wind 020 degrees 10 knots, OK, temperature 4 degrees, dew point 0 degrees, QNH 1028 hectopascals, Bournemouth 1 knot.
Now if I flip that off that frequency just for a second so it's quiet, you can hear that what we got there was we got Birmingham and we got Bournemouth, even though we are near Liverpool. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune in the main London Volmet, and you will get an idea of just how far away you can hear stuff. So the main London Volmet station is 135.375. Now this is where you have to be a little bit careful, because some flight simulator aeroplanes will not let you tune decimal 375. They'll let you tune decimal 370 and 378 and what have you, but they won't do that step. But thankfully RealVolmet will allow you to tune as near as possible to those stations, and it will still pick them up. But since I can put 135.375 on this one, I am tuning it, and that will give me the main London Volmet channel. And listen very carefully to what it starts reporting on, even though it's a London frequency and we are near Liverpool Airport.
London Volmet at time 2330, Amsterdam 2255, wind 040 degrees 13 knots, OK, temperature 7 degrees, dew point 3 degrees, QNH 1022 hectopascals, no sig, Brussels 2250, wind 020 degrees 03 knots, OK, temperature 7 degrees, dew point 1 degrees, QNH 1020 hectopascals, no sig, Dublin, 2300,
Got Dublin.
wind, 040 degrees, 12 knots, visibility 10 kilometers or more. Clouds, scattered, 900 feet, broken, 5,000 feet, temperature, 7 degrees, dew point, 6 degrees, QNH, 1031 hectopascals. No sig. Glasgow, 2250, wind.
So I'm going to knock that off now. From that, you can hear that we got Amsterdam, we got Brussels, we got Dublin, we got Glasgow. If I kept on there, we would have got Paris, Charles de Gaulle as well. So that is a massive range where you can pick up radio reports of what the weather is like, and that is why this is a really great add-on. So RealVolmet Europe for P3D version 4 by MA RealTurb. I think it's great, and not only that, guess who else thinks it's great? I showed it to my mum and she thinks it's great, so here's a quick word from her.
It's really good.
There you go. Did you like that? Even my mum thinks it's good. Anyway, there you go. That was my review of RealVolmet. Check it out. It's a very, very worthwhile program, and if you fly airliners in P3D, then I think it's definitely worth picking up. And a big shout out to the developer too. I had a few issues and comments related to it, and I emailed him, and the guy got straight back to me and was really, really helpful. And that's always a good sign when a developer will do that. Now, just before I go, you can probably see that the cockpit's shaking about a little bit. And that, I'm going to zoom out, that is because I am actually using another product from the same company. What I am using is RealTurb Europe, which is another product from the same developer. You can probably work that out from the name. And what that does is that also uses meteo data, pulls it into your sim, and then what it does is it creates turbulence based on that meteo data, and it's really, really good. It makes for some very interesting landings with sort of wind shear and things like that. So if you like realistic turbulence effects on your airplane that are very, very much like the real weather data that you're picking up on your radio from this RealVolmet add-on, and what the sim is putting in there, particularly if you use Active Sky, then that's a great combination. So there's another program from the same company that you might want to check out, and they do all kinds of stuff. They do RealTurb for Europe, and they do one for US, and they do one for sort of holiday destinations and all that. There's absolutely loads of them. They are definitely worth a look. Anyway, that's enough of for this review. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons in YouTube if you want to get information about new reviews that I've done as and when they come out, because I'm currently stuck in self-isolating and laid off from working at the airport at the moment, although the good news is that I am still employed by them. I'm just laid off until the coronavirus finishes. I actually spoke to them today, so I know that's true. But what that means is that I am, because I'm stuck at home, producing a lot of videos. So yeah, if you like this kind of thing, hit that subscribe and the notification bell on YouTube, and you'll be the first person to know when a new video comes out. Anyway, have fun, and as I said before, take care while we're in this difficult time with the coronavirus, and make sure that you kind of, if there's someone that lives nearby to you, make sure that you are offering to help them if they need help, for elderly people or what have you. We can all help one another, and hopefully we'll come out the other side of this even stronger. Alrighty, see you around.